My mother-in-law tried to prove my toddler's allergies were fake by feeding her peanut butter, so I got her arrested, moved states. I never write or read here, but when I told a new friend of mine about everything that happened with my mother-in-law, she just stared at me and said, "This is way too much drama to keep to yourself. Reddit needs to hear this." So here I am, sharing what's probably the most insane thing I'll ever live through. Buckle up, because this one's a wild ride. Honestly, I should have known from day one that my Mill was not going to be a normal grandma. Like, at all. I don't know why I brushed it off in the beginning. Maybe I just thought all grandmas got a little weird when they found out a baby was coming. But no, she wasn't just weird. She was obsessed. It started during my pregnancy, and looking back now, there were 100 red flags I just ignored. When I first told her I was pregnant, you'd think she was the one who got me there. She screamed, cried, hugged me so tight I thought my ribs might crack, and immediately started calling the baby her baby. My husband brushed it off, saying, "She's just excited, babe. Don't overthink it." But man, I should have listened to my gut. The first, what the hell moment, was her trying to come to my OB appointments. Yeah, every single one. At first, it was kind of innocent. She was like, "Oh, I'd love to see the ultrasound. I get it. Ultrasounds are exciting." So I let her come to one big mistake. She asked a million questions like she was the one who was pregnant, grilling the doctor about what I was eating, if I was taking my vitamins, how much weight I'd gained. Is my baby okay? Is my baby growing enough? My doctor kept looking at me like, is this lady serious? It didn't stop there. Then came the nursery. I was so excited to set up a cute little room for my daughter. I wanted it to be soft pastels, cozy and simple, nothing over the top. I swear the moment I told Mill my plans, she acted like I just announced I was putting my baby in a dungeon. Pastels? How boring. Babies need stimulation. Let's paint it bright yellow or red. She even started sending me links to furniture I hated, like these crazy Disney-themed cribs that looked like carnival rides. I tried to be polite. "Oh, we're keeping it simple, but thanks for the suggestions." Nope, she wasn't letting it go. It got to the point where she called my husband in tears, actual tears, because she felt left out of the nursery. She said it was her right as a grandma to have a say. My husband was in the middle of work when she did this, and he was so annoyed that he snapped and told her to back off for like 3 days. She was radio silent, probably pouting in her house. I thought maybe we'd turned a corner. But no, this was just the beginning. The delivery room fight was when I realized something was really wrong. She wanted to be in the room while I gave birth, like up close and personal. I remember laughing when she first said it because I thought she was joking. Who the hell wants to watch their daughter-in-law give birth? But she was dead serious. "I want to be there for my baby's first breath. First of all, not your baby. Second, no, just no." She pushed hard, though. She tried guilt-tripping me, saying how important this was to her, and how she didn't get the chance to see her other grandkids born. Side note, she only has one other grandkid, and she wasn't invited to that delivery either. When I told her it was a hard no, she acted like I'd ripped her heart out. She cried to my husband again, saying I was being unfair and didn't trust her. Trust had nothing to do with it. I just didn't want her in the damn room. After my daughter was born, Mill somehow got worse. I thought maybe having a new grandbaby to love on would calm her down, but it was like pouring gasoline on a fire. She was there all the time. All the time. The first couple weeks after delivery, she'd just show up at our house uninvited. I'd be sitting on the couch, barely alive after sleepless nights, and there she'd be ringing the doorbell with bags of clothes and toys. And of course, she never brought practical stuff. No diapers, no wipes, no bottles. Just fancy frilly dresses my daughter would never wear. "Oh, it's just for photos," she'd say, holding up some $100 dress. Like, lady, we don't have time for a photo shoot when I'm trying to figure out if I'll ever sleep again. Even holidays became about her. She basically told us that Christmas and Thanksgiving were hers now because family traditions or something. I was too exhausted to fight it, so we just let her have her way. But the weirdest part, even though she was obsessed with my daughter, I never left them alone together. I can't even explain why. It was just instinct. I knew something wasn't right. She offered to babysit all the time, but when I said no, she dropped it without a fight. I remember telling my husband once, "I just don't feel comfortable leaving her alone with the baby." He looked at me like I was nuts, but I didn't care. The real kicker was her constant comments about my daughter's health. By the time my kid was 3, we knew she had severe allergies, peanuts and eggs being the worst. She also can't have dairy or bananas. It was scary, but we managed. We were super careful with food, carried EpiPens everywhere, and told everyone who needed to know. Mill, though? She was not on board. She'd roll her eyes when I talked about my daughter's allergies. Kids need to be exposed to these things. You're making her weak, she'd say. She claimed none of her kids ever had allergies, so clearly I was just being paranoid. She didn't say it outright, but I knew she didn't believe the allergies were real. Still, I didn't think she'd do anything. I just figured she was being a judgmental grandma who didn't get modern parenting. I should have trusted my gut because what happened next is something I'll never ever forget. It was a Sunday. I remember everything about that day, the horrible pounding headache that wouldn't quit. I woke up feeling like I'd been hit by a truck and figured I just needed a break. Parenting a 3-year-old isn't easy. My mother-in-law, of course, was over because weekends were her grandma days. She decided a while back that Sundays were for her and my daughter to play dress-up, and honestly, at that point, I let it happen. It kept her entertained, and I could get some chores done without tripping over princess dresses. That morning, she showed up with yet another shiny dress. My daughter loved it because she's 3 and anything shiny is peak excitement. My mother-in-law beamed like she just won a trophy, saying things like, "See? Grandma knows exactly what you like, sweetie." She had her phone out the entire time, snapping pictures and videos, and I didn't give it a thought. I was too tired to deal with it. After about an hour of hearing them squeal and laugh, my headache went from annoying to I'm going to die. I couldn't even focus on what Mill was saying anymore. Finally, I caved and asked Mill for a favor, a tiny favor. "Can you just keep an eye on her for 30 minutes? I need to lie down. My head is killing me." She was thrilled, practically giddy. "Of course. Go rest, honey. I'll take care of her. We'll just play here." I should have known better. I never leave my daughter alone with Mill. And not because she'd done anything before, but because I always had that gut feeling. Something about her just made me nervous. But that day, I thought, what's the worst that could happen in 30 minutes? I went to my room, curled up in bed, and for the first time all day, I exhaled. I don't know how long I was asleep, maybe 20 minutes, but I woke up to the most terrifying sound I've ever heard. My mother-in-law was screaming, not yelling, screaming. I stumbled out of bed, still groggy and disoriented, and ran toward the sound, my daughter's room. My mother-in-law was standing there, hands in her hair, shrieking, something's wrong with her." And there on the floor was my baby, my beautiful, perfect baby girl. She was gasping for breath, her tiny lips turning blue. My brain went straight into survival mode. I didn't even scream. I just ran to where we keep her EpiPen, grabbed it, and gave her the shot. My hands were shaking so bad I almost couldn't do it, but I got it in her leg, and within seconds she sucked in the most raspy breath I've ever heard. I don't remember if I cried. I just remember holding her and whispering, "You're okay, baby. Mommy's here. You're okay." Then I smelled it. Bananas. For a second, I thought I was imagining it, but no, I could smell bananas on her face, her hands. I looked at my Mill and demanded, "What the hell did you give her?" She froze like a deer in headlights, her mouth opening and closing like she was searching for words. Finally, she stammered, "It was just a cookie, a little cookie. I didn't think—" I lost it. "A cookie? What kind of cookie?" She mumbled something about peanut butter and bananas, and I swear my heart stopped. Peanut butter, bananas, 2 of the worst things my daughter could ever have. I was shaking so hard I could barely hold her. "Call 911!" I screamed at Mill. She didn't move, just stood there sobbing. I grabbed my phone myself, dialed the number, and rode in the ambulance with my baby, holding her hand the entire way. The paramedics were incredible. They started in 4, gave her oxygen, and got her stable. But they could tell something had happened. One of them asked, "Do you know what triggered it?" I said, "Her grandmother gave her something. She has severe food allergies." That's when the paramedic found the half-eaten cookie on the floor of her room. He looked at it, then at me, and said quietly, "This was deliberate. You should let the hospital know." I was numb. I texted my husband, "We're on the way to the hospital. Mill fed her peanut butter. I'll explain later. Come now." At the hospital, I sat there watching machines beep while my husband rushed in, pale and panicked. When I told him what happened, he went silent, just silent. Then his phone rang. "Mill," he answered, and all I heard was her crying through the speaker, "I didn't mean it. You're overreacting. I was just trying to prove there's nothing wrong with her." She said that out loud, like it made sense. She admitted she'd been baking these cookies for months, cookies with peanuts, bananas, eggs, freezing them and carrying them in her purse just in case she got the chance to give one to my daughter. I still can't wrap my head around that. She didn't forget about her allergies. She knew and did it anyway because in her twisted mind, we were being paranoid and ruining her granddaughter's life. The hospital reported everything to the police that night. A detective came by to take our statements the next day, but I barely remember what I said. I couldn't focus on anything except my baby. She spent the night in the hospital under observation, but she pulled through. Meanwhile, Mill blew up our phones with texts and voicemails. Most were her crying and begging us to understand that she was just trying to help. But one voicemail still makes my blood run cold. She said, "If I can't have her, nobody can." My husband sat in the chair next to me, just as silent. I think the shock had hit him hard. I mean, what do you even say when your own mother does something so insane? Around 3 a.m., his phone buzzed. It was another voicemail from her. I grabbed his phone, unlocked it, and played it. It was her again, sobbing. "You've misunderstood everything. I'm sorry. I just wanted to show you how silly you're being. She's my baby too. Don't shut me out." I handed him the phone. "She's out of her mind," I said quietly. My husband looked like he wanted to cry, scream, and punch something all at the same time. He didn't reply. I sat in that hospital chair holding my daughter's hand and realized I could never trust that woman again, ever. The day after the hospital stay, I woke up still feeling like I'd been hit by a truck. My daughter was back to being her happy, chatty self, playing with her stuffed animals and showing off her bracelet, the hospital band covered in stickers like it was the coolest thing ever. I should have felt relieved, and I did, a little, but mostly I was wrecked. Later that morning, a detective showed up at our house to take formal statements. I didn't even know where to start. I sat at our kitchen table while he asked question after question. Did she know about the allergies? Yes. Had she done anything like this before? No. Had she made threats? I hesitated. She said if she couldn't have her, nobody could. The detective's eyebrows went up. She said that? I nodded. My husband handed over his phone with the voicemails still saved, and the detective took copies of everything, texts, recordings, the works. He told us they were going to bring Mill in for questioning because those voicemails combined with what she did were considered serious threats. I felt like I was in a bad movie. Like, how did we get here? The whole day was a blur after that. My daughter was fine physically, which was the most important thing, but emotionally she kept asking about Grandma. When's Grandma coming? I want to show her my bracelet. She was so proud of that stupid hospital band, and every time she asked, it felt like a punch to the gut. I didn't know how to explain it to her. How do you tell a 3-year-old that Grandma almost killed her on purpose? The counselor at the hospital had given us a script to use. Grandma made you very sick today, so she's in a timeout and can't see you right now. It sounded so simple, but every time I said it, my voice cracked. My husband's family found out pretty quickly, and that's when things got messy. It turns out when you call the police on your mother-in-law and say she almost killed your kid, people pick sides. His siblings were mostly horrified. They called us saying, "What the hell is wrong with her?" But there were a few people, like Mill's sister, who were pushing the whole she didn't mean it narrative. She just needs help, they said. This isn't who she really is. Yeah, well, who she really is almost killed my daughter with a peanut butter banana cookie. She knew about the allergies. She ignored them. She put my baby's life in danger because she wanted to prove a point. What kind of person does that? My husband, to his credit, was done. He's always been close with his mom, and I know this whole thing shattered him, but he didn't waver for a second. He told his family point blank, "Our daughter comes first. Anyone who doesn't see that can leave us alone." The detective called us later that week to let us know Mill had been taken into custody for a psych evaluation. Apparently, when they questioned her, she went on some bizarre rant about how kids these days are too coddled and parents are brainwashing them with all these new rules about food and health. She kept saying, "I just wanted to show them there's nothing wrong with her." Like she thought she was the hero of this story. That's when I realized this wasn't just ignorance. This was something darker. She thought she knew better than everyone else, and she was willing to risk my daughter's life to prove it. The scariest part? She didn't seem to think she'd done anything wrong. We filed for a restraining order that day. My husband and I sat in the courthouse filling out paperwork, feeling like we were living someone else's life. Mill had been part of our lives for so long, and now we were literally asking the law to keep her away from us. I didn't feel sad. I felt angry. Angry that she put my child in danger. Angry that she thought her feelings were more important than my daughter's life. Angry that my daughter was now asking, "Did I do something bad? Is Grandma mad at me?" That night, my husband and I sat on the couch after putting our daughter to bed, and I told him, "She's never seeing her again. I don't care what anyone says." He looked at me, exhausted but resolute, and said, "I know." For the next couple days, things were quiet. Mill was released from custody, but the restraining order was in place, and the police warned her to stay away. My husband and I were on edge, but I think we both hoped this was the end of it. She'd been taken into custody, the restraining order was filed, and the police had made it very clear she couldn't come near us or our daughter. I thought maybe, just maybe, she'd finally back off and leave us alone. No, I was wrong. It started small. Little things that made me feel paranoid even though I knew I wasn't. A car parked down the street that looked suspiciously like hers. A neighbor mentioning they'd seen some woman walking past our house a few times, staring at the windows. I told myself, it's probably nothing, but deep down, I knew. A week later, I got the call, my daughter's preschool. I was at home folding laundry when my phone rang, and I didn't think much of it. I figured it was a routine call, maybe something about a class event or a reminder about snacks. Instead, I heard the director's voice, calm but tight. "Hi, Mrs. My Name. We wanted to check with you. Your mother-in-law is here and she says there's a family emergency. She's asking to take your daughter home." I froze. My body went ice cold. What? Absolutely not. Do not let her take her. Call the police right now. The director didn't hesitate. Understood. We'll keep her safe. The classroom's already on soft lockdown and we're contacting the authorities. I hung up and immediately called my husband, my hands shaking so bad I could barely hold the phone. "She's at the preschool," I said, my voice breaking. "She tried to take her, calling the police." He didn't even respond. He just hung up, probably racing to get out of work. I sat there in my living room staring at the walls, waiting for someone, anyone, to call me back. Those 20 minutes felt like hours. All I could think about was my daughter locked in her classroom, probably wondering why they were playing quiet games instead of going outside like usual. Finally, the director called back. "She's gone. The police arrived and removed her from the premises. Your daughter is safe, and she doesn't know anything happened." I let out a breath I didn't even know I'd been holding. Thank you so much." Apparently, Mill had shown up at the preschool's front desk acting calm, composed, and believable. She told the staff there was a family emergency and that I'd sent her to pick up my daughter. She even said, "You can call her if you don't believe me," fully confident I wouldn't answer my phone. Thankfully, the staff knew better. We told them about the restraining order and they had strict instructions not to let anyone pick her up unless we said so. I still couldn't wrap my head around it. This woman tried to kidnap my kid. I was livid. My husband came home from work that day looking like he was ready to tear the world apart. He called the police station to find out what was happening next. They told us Mill had been arrested for violating the restraining order, and there would likely be legal consequences this time. That night, we sat down together and agreed we needed to move. Staying in the same city wasn't safe anymore. My husband's job had offices in other states, and he'd already been talking to his boss about a transfer just to be prepared. That night, he confirmed everything. In June, we were leaving, and Mill wouldn't know where we went. The days leading up to the move were tense. I started feeling like I was being watched every time I left the house. My husband installed security cameras around the perimeter, and I double-checked the locks every night before bed. Our daughter was still blissfully unaware of the chaos happening behind the scenes. She was happy, healthy, and kept asking when we were going to visit Grandma again. I didn't know what to tell her anymore. Then came moving day. We'd kept our plans quiet, only telling close friends and the landlord that we were leaving. I don't know how Mill found out, but sure enough, the morning the movers showed up, she did too. I was in the living room packing up last-minute toys when I heard a loud honk outside. I looked out the window and there she was, parked in the driveway, blocking the moving truck, arms crossed like she was staking a claim on our house. I felt my heart drop. "She's here," I called to my husband. He ran to the window and swore under his breath. "Stay inside. I'll handle her." I grabbed my daughter, who was still in her pajamas, and led her to her room. I closed the door, sat her on the bed, and turned on some cartoons to distract her. My hands were shaking again. I could hear my husband outside, his voice raised but calm, trying to reason with her. "You need to leave. You're violating the restraining order again. The police are already on the way." Her voice, though? Pure madness. "You can't take her from me. She's my baby and I'll make sure she knows it. You can't hide from me forever." Then she said the thing that made me feel like I was going to throw up. "I'll take her when you're not looking." I don't even know what she meant by that, but maybe she'd really lost it. My husband kept her as far from the house as possible while he called the police. They showed up fast, thank God, and this time they didn't mess around. She was arrested on the spot, screaming the entire time that we were ruining her life. Once her car was towed and the movers could finish their job, we left. I didn't even look back. The day we moved felt like ripping a Band-Aid off a wound. My husband, daughter, and I were packed into the car, and I finally let out a deep breath as the movers pulled out of the driveway. I didn't even look back at the house. I just wanted it behind us, along with every memory of the insanity Mill had put us through. My husband sat in the driver's seat, hands clenched on the wheel, not saying much. I could tell he was holding in a storm of emotion. Our daughter, strapped into her car seat, completely unaware of how close her life had come to spiraling out of control because of her grandma. We drove in silence for hours until we finally arrived at the new house. It was smaller but cozy, about 1,000 miles away from where Mill could get to us. I think we both expected to feel instant relief, like crossing state lines would make us safe again. But trauma doesn't work like that. Even though I knew logically that she couldn't find us, I kept glancing over my shoulder, expecting her to appear. My husband dove into work right away, and I focused on making the house feel like home. We signed our daughter up for a new preschool, a private one with strict security protocols that required ID checks and paperwork for everything. I handed them a copy of the restraining order on day one and explained that under no circumstances was my mother-in-law ever to be near my child. The director gave me a sympathetic nod and reassured me that their staff was trained to handle situations like this. For the first time in months, things felt normal. My daughter was making friends at school. We were exploring the neighborhood, and my husband and I were starting to reconnect after what felt like living through a nightmare. But of course, Mill couldn't let it go. About 3 weeks after we moved, my husband got called into a meeting at his new office. At first, he thought it was about onboarding paperwork or something routine, but nope. HR sat him down and said, "We received a series of phone calls from someone claiming to be your mother. She was asking for your extension and personal details." My husband felt his stomach drop. What did she say? Apparently, Mill had called the old office first and played the forgetful old lady card. She said she needed to get in touch with her sweet boy because it was an emergency, and the receptionist, not knowing any better, gave her the number to the new office location. From there, she managed to get the direct line to his desk. What happened next sounds like something out of a horror movie. She didn't call to talk. She didn't call to explain herself. No, she just screamed, full-on banshee wailing. My husband described it as ear-piercing, like someone on the brink of a complete breakdown. He hung up immediately, but she called back, and back, and back, 12 times. Each time she left a voicemail that was nothing but her unhinged screeching. No words, just wailing like some kind of animal. By the time my husband was called into HR, the whole office knew what was going on. He had to explain the situation to HR, show them the restraining order, and assure them that he was handling it with the police. HR was understanding, but they still had to change his entire extension and block her number permanently. When my husband came home and told me, I felt sick. She had no idea where we lived, but she'd managed to track down his job across state lines. I started spiraling. What if she hired someone to follow us? What if she found the new preschool? I didn't sleep that night, checking the security cameras on my phone every 5 minutes. The next day, we called the police back in our old town to file another report. My husband handed over the voicemails and the officer just shook his head and said, "I've never heard anything like this." The restraining order was already violated when she showed up at the preschool, and now this harassment was adding fuel to the fire. The officer told us they'd be contacting Mill directly, and that this would likely escalate her case to something criminal. Sure enough, a week later we got the call. Mill had been arrested again. I can't lie, I felt a sense of relief when I heard those words. She was finally being held accountable. This time the courts weren't messing around. Between the preschool incident, the attempted abduction, and the harassing phone calls, Mill was looking at some serious consequences. The prosecutor told us she would likely face a choice, jail time or mandatory psychiatric treatment. Either way, we didn't care, as long as she was out of our lives. My husband took the news harder than I did. I think hearing the words psychiatric treatment made him realize how far gone his mother really was. He sat on the couch that night, staring at nothing, and finally said, "It's like my mom died. That's not her anymore." I didn't know what to say. He was grieving, and I understood that, but I also couldn't forgive what she'd done. She nearly killed our daughter. She stalked us. She tried to take my child out of preschool. I wouldn't allow any sympathy for her, not now. We spent the next few months rebuilding our lives. My daughter loved her new school. My husband dove into therapy to deal with his grief, and I started working part-time to help cover the cost of the new preschool. It was worth every penny knowing she was safe, surrounded by teachers who knew our situation and wouldn't let anyone near her. It helped me sleep better at night. We never told Mill where we moved. As far as she knew, we disappeared off the face of the earth. I blocked her on everything. Social media, phone numbers, even email. We warned family members not to share our information, and those who were still defending her got the same treatment. And here's the cherry on top. Shortly after the move, we found out I was pregnant again. We haven't told anyone yet, not even close friends. Mill will never know about this baby. She will never meet this child, just like she will never see our daughter again. My husband and I have agreed that if Mill ever finds us, if she somehow tracks us down, we will take our kids and leave the country. My parents live in Ireland, and we already have passports ready. I refuse to take any chances with someone who has proven how dangerous and unstable they are. For now, though, we're safe. My daughter is happy, my husband is healing, and Mill, well, wherever she is, she's no longer part of our lives, and that's exactly how it's going to stay.